The beginning of the murders, 1968 to 1969. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror began on the night of December 20th, 1968, in the quiet town of Vallejo, California. Two high school students, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, set out for a date that ended in tragedy. The couple parked their car on Lake Herman Road, a popular lover's lane. There, they were attacked by an unknown assailant. David was shot in the head while still in the car, and Betty Lou was shot 5 times as she attempted to flee. Both died at the scene, marking the Zodiac's first confirmed murders. The crime stunned the local community, but it would soon become clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger nightmare. The police initially struggled to identify a motive or suspect. The seemingly random nature of the killings left investigators without many leads. Despite an extensive investigation, no arrests were made, and the case remained unsolved. About 7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, once more targeting a young couple in Vallejo. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau parked their car at Blue Rock Springs Park, just a few miles from the site of the first murders. A car pulled up behind them, and after briefly leaving, the driver returned and approached the couple's vehicle. Without warning, the attacker fired multiple shots at the pair, hitting them both. Darlene was fatally wounded, but Michael miraculously survived despite being shot several times. He would later provide police with a description of the attacker, a heavy-set man, around 5'8" with short, curly hair. Soon after the attack, the killer made his first direct contact with the authorities. He called the Vallejo Police Department from a payphone and calmly claimed responsibility for both the Blue Rock Springs attack and the earlier Lake Herman Road murders. He offered details that only the killer could know, confirming his connection to both crimes. The call marked the beginning of the Zodiac Killer's eerie and taunting communication with law enforcement and the public. Though his identity remained hidden, the killer was now making it clear that he was watching, and he had more violence planned. The terror that began with these two attacks would only escalate in the months to come. The letters and ciphers. The Zodiac Killer's thirst for attention and notoriety became fully apparent when he began sending letters to local newspapers in August 1969, just a month after his second confirmed attack. The first letters were sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained a part of a cipher and a chilling message. The writer took responsibility for the recent murders of Betty Lou Jensen, David Faraday, Darlene Ferrin, and the attempted murder of Michael Mageau. He demanded that the newspapers publish the ciphers or he would kill again. The letters were signed with a crosshair-like symbol, which became the Zodiac's infamous signature. In one of these letters, he also gave himself a name. "This is the Zodiac speaking." From this point on, the killer would be known as the Zodiac, a name he crafted to both terrify the public and control the narrative surrounding his crimes. The cryptograms, totaling 408 characters, were intended to reveal the killer's identity, or so the Zodiac claimed. Though they were complex, a high school teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty successfully cracked the cipher within a week. The decoded message revealed the Zodiac's disturbing mindset. In it, he wrote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun," comparing humans to animals and emphasizing that killing gave him a sense of power. However, the cipher did not contain his identity, as he had hinted. Instead, the Zodiac's real name remained hidden, deepening the mystery around him. Over the following months, the Zodiac continued sending letters. His tone was brazen and taunting, often mocking the police for their inability to catch him. He even threatened to attack school buses and pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. This threat sent waves of panic through the Bay Area, intensifying fear and prompting heightened security measures. The letters also indicated the Zodiac's desire for recognition and fame. He craved attention, constantly seeking to dominate headlines while playing a cat-and-mouse game with law enforcement. Between 1969 and 1974, he sent more than 20 letters, some containing additional ciphers, though not all were solved. The Zodiac took great pleasure in manipulating public fear, and his letters kept the police on edge while maintaining his terrifying anonymity. The Lake Berryessa attack and Paul Stein murder. The Zodiac Killer's most chilling and theatrical attack occurred on September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, a secluded area popular with hikers and picnickers. On that day, young couple Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing by the lake when they were approached by a man wearing a black executioner-style hood with a symbol of a crosshair on his chest. This eerie symbol would later become synonymous with the Zodiac. Armed with a gun and knife, the attacker told the couple that he was an escaped convict from a prison in Montana and needed money and their car to flee to Mexico. He tied them up with pre-cut lengths of clothesline before brutally stabbing them both repeatedly. Despite the horrifying attack, Brian Hartnell survived and was able to recount the details to police, but Cecilia Shepard succumbed to her injuries 2 days later. After the attack, the Zodiac casually walked to Hartnell's car and wrote a message on the door detailing the date, time, and method of his assault, along with his signature crosshair symbol. He then called the Napa County Police Department from a payphone, confessing to the crime and directing officers to the scene. This attack was different from the Zodiac's previous shootings, signaling a shift in his method. It demonstrated both his desire for theatricality and his calculated cruelty, as he taunted the police by confessing and leaving behind physical evidence. Despite Hartnell's survival and his detailed description of the attacker, the Zodiac evaded capture once again. Just 2 weeks later, on October 11, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the bustling neighborhood of Presidio Heights in San Francisco. Unlike his prior rural attacks, this murder occurred in an urban setting. The Zodiac hailed a taxi driven by Paul Stein, and as the cab reached its destination, the killer shot Stein in the head at point-blank range. He then calmly took Stein's wallet, car keys, and a piece of his bloody shirt as a trophy. This bold murder, committed in a busy city, shocked the public and police alike. Several witnesses saw the killer leave the scene, and police nearly apprehended him, but a mix-up in the description allowed him to slip away. Days later, the Zodiac mailed part of Stein's shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle, confirming his involvement and continuing his pattern of taunting law enforcement. The investigation and legacy. As the Zodiac Killer continued his taunting letters, the police mounted an exhaustive investigation, but he remained elusive. His last confirmed murder occurred in 1969, but his letters continued sporadically until 1974. These communications, however, offered little to advance the investigation and often contained cryptic messages, threats, or boasts of additional killings that could not be verified. The Zodiac claimed to have killed 37 people, though only 5 murders, those of Betty Lou Jensen, David Faraday, Darlene Ferrin, Paul Stein, and Cecilia Shepard, have been definitively linked to him. Despite intensive efforts, the Zodiac was never identified. The San Francisco Police Department, SFPD, and FBI pursued numerous leads, investigating hundreds of suspects over the years. One of the most prominent suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester with a troubled history. Several pieces of circumstantial evidence seemed to link him to the Zodiac crimes, including his residence near the crime scenes, a fondness for cryptography, and possession of a Zodiac brand wristwatch featuring the killer's symbol. However, Allen was never definitively tied to the murders. Handwriting analysis and DNA testing from stamps on the Zodiac's letters failed to match Allen, and he died in 1992, leaving many questions unanswered. Forensic technology advanced significantly in the years following the Zodiac's reign of terror. DNA testing, fingerprint analysis, and modern cryptography were all employed, but they yielded no definitive results. Investigators obtained partial DNA profiles from the Zodiac's letters, but they were too degraded or incomplete to conclusively identify anyone. In 2020, a team of cryptographers finally cracked the 340-character cipher sent in 1969, but it only contained more rambling messages from the killer, offering no clues about his identity. The Zodiac case has since become a part of American cultural mythology, inspiring numerous books, films, and documentaries. His ability to outwit the authorities and the enduring mystery of his identity continue to fascinate true crime enthusiasts and professionals alike. In 2004, the SFPD officially closed the case, though it has been periodically reopened due to renewed public interest or breakthroughs in forensic science. The Zodiac's identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in criminal history, leaving a legacy of fear, intrigue, and frustration. Despite the many suspects and theories over the years, the true face of the Zodiac Killer may never be known.